to the sound of laundry tumbling. Chapter 5, The Body Artist. It was another slow morning, foggy and still, and the phone was ringing. She stood nude in the workout room, bent left, eyes shut, checking the time on her wrist. Or sat cross-legged, back straight, breathing dementedly. She blew through her nostrils and made echoey sounds in her throat, visualizing her body lifting and spinning a rotation with every breath. Or went about on all fours, knees hip distance apart, rump up, feeling the cat length in her pose, doing the shoulder roll. She stood and swung slowly about, eternally checking the time. Half her body wheeling with the arc of the left arm, the watch arm, or the body levered by the arm, and the head cranking incrementally like the second hand on the missing watch, mouth open and eyes ever tight. She heard a plane cross the sky, and then light blinked off and on. The sunlight, the sun ray, an event she assembled through closed lids, and she knew the fog had finally lifted. When it was too damp and cold on the sun porch, they talked in the paneled room, and she took notes and recorded. He barely spoke some mornings, but was willing on others, and they sat near the fire she'd built, and the house was dead around them. Being here has come to me. I am with the moment. I will leave the moment. Chair, table, wall, hall, all for the moment, in the moment. It has come to me, here and near. From the moment I am gone, am left, am leaving, I will leave the moment from the moment. She didn't know what to call this. She called it singing. He kept it going a while, ongoing, oncoming, and it was song, it was chant. She leaned into him. This was a level that demonstrated he was not closed to inspiration. She felt an easing in her body that drew her down out of laborious thought and into something nearly uncontrollable. She leaned into his voice, laughing. She wanted to chant with him, to fall in and out of time, or words, or things, whatever he was doing, but she only laughed instead. Coming and going, I am leaving. I will go and come. Leaving has come to me. We all shall all, will all be left, because I am here and where, and I will go or not or never, and I have seen what I will see. If I am where I will be, because nothing comes between me. She was laughing, but he was not. It came out of him non-stop, and it wasn't schizophrenic speech or the whoop of rippling bodies shocked by God. He sat pale and still. She watched him. It was pure chant, transparent. Or was he saying something to her? She felt an elation that made it hard for her to listen carefully. Was he telling her what it is like to be him? To live in his body and mind? She tried to hear this, but could not. The words ran on, sensuous, empty, and she wanted him to laugh with her, to follow her out of herself. This is the point, yes. This is the stir of true amazement. and some terror at the edge, or fear of believing, some displacement of self. But this is the point. This is the wedge into ecstasy, the old deep meaning of the word, your eyes rolling upward in your skull. What is the moment? You said the moment. Tell me what this means to you. Show me the moment. He said, talk into the thing. What do you know? Who is Ray? Do you talk to him? Did you ever talk to him? Do you know who I am talking about when I say Ray? I am Lauren. Who is Ray? A man? So tall. Look, so tall, this tall. And a mustache. A man with hair on his upper lip. Look at me, geek. How tall? This tall. A man with brushy hair on his upper lip. But then he shaved his mustache. He shaved his mustache. She'd forgotten this until now. She saw something out of the corner of her eye. She turned her head, and nothing was there. The phone was ringing. She decided to find an optometrist because she thought she'd seen something a number of times, or once or twice, out of the corner of her right eye, or an ophthalmologist, but knew she wouldn't bother. The phone was ringing. She picked it up and waited for someone to speak. It was time to sand her body. She used a pumice stone on the bottoms of her feet, working circular swipes, balls, heels, and then re-soaked the foot and twisted it up into her hand again. She liked to hold a foot in a hand. She patiently raised the lone callus, stretching the task over days, lost in it, her body coiled in a wholeness of intent, the kind of solemn self-absorption that marks a line from childhood. She had emery boards and files, many kinds of scissors, clippers, and creams that activated the verbs of abridgment and excision. She studied her fingers and toes. There was a way in which she isolated a digit for sharp regard, using a magnifier and a square of dark cardboard. And there were hangnails flying and shreds and grains of dead skin and fragments of nail, skinless, springing into the air. It was good to be doing this again. Maybe this man is defenseless against the truth of the world. What truth? She thought. What truth? Time is supposed to pass, she thought. But maybe he is living in another state. It is a kind of time that is simply and overwhelmingly there, laid out, unoccurring, and he lacks the inborn ability to reconceive this condition. What ability? There is nothing he can do to imagine time existing in reassuring sequence, passing, flowing, happening. The world happens. It has to. We feel it, with names and dates and distinctions. His future is unnamed. It is simultaneous somehow with the present. Neither happens before or after the other, and they're equally accessible. Perhaps if only in his mind. The laws of nature permit things that, in fact, in practice, she thought never happened. But could. But could not. But could. If only in his mind, she thought. She ate dull, light dinners quickly, getting it over with. Sometimes he didn't appear, and sometimes he appeared but didn't eat, and once he was missing for 6 or 7 hours, and she went through the house and then down the driveway in the dark, shining a flashlight in the trees and calmly saying, "Where are you?" She waited inside with a book in her hands, a prop, sitting and thinking, not thinking. Any woman who knows the worst. Came into the room then, edgingly, in his self-winding way, as if. She watched him try to adapt his frame to a wing chair, and allowed herself a certain measure of relief, a kind of body lightness that disengaged her dreamily from the stolid woman with the book. She thought of a man showing up unexpectedly. Not the man who was here now, another man. It was nothing. It was something that came into her mind while she ate her breakfast. A man appearing suddenly, as in a movie, and he is shot from below. Not shot, but photographed. Not shot, but captured on motion picture film from below, so that he looms. It comes as a shock, the way it's done. A man at the door, lighted in such and such a way, menacingly, for effect. Or encountered in the driveway when she gets out of her car, a large man looming suddenly above her. It is the shock of the outside world, the blow, the stun of intrusion, and the moment is rendered in a way that's deeply threatening to two people who have been living reclusively in self-involved circumstances. It turns out that he is the owner of the house, a large man, yes, for effect, old but fit, or not so old, and it turns out further that he is here to talk about Mr. Tuttle. She saw herself in the scene, in the driveway, listening to the man. It was just a passing thing, a story, she told herself, or screened forgettably. The man explains to her that Mr. Tuttle, by whatever name, is a family member of the second cousin type, or he is the son, this is better, of a beloved sister, and he has spent much of his life in this house with an undiagnosed condition, or brain damaged, better, and being cared for part-time by a nurse hired by the man, the owner, who is a little tweedy, a little shabby, but mostly sad, sort of family sad. And when the owner and his wife Alma resolved to live elsewhere, with the children grown and starting families of their own, they decided to rent this old lopsided pile, their memoried hearth and home, and eventually probably sell. And they put Mr. Tuttle, whose real name does not get used, into a facility for people suffering from one sort of condition or another, 100 miles from here. states of being that are beyond the most reckless surmise. And it never occurred to the family, when they heard he was missing from the facility, that he might be capable of finding his way back to the house until now. It has occurred to them now, and so here he is, the owner, inquiring. She refrains in her imagining, as does the owner, from using the lost dog analogy as it pertains to Mr. Tuttle, out of whatever scruple and so on. And that was how the thing ended, more or less, over breakfast with the owner and the tenant in the driveway, looking vaguely at the house. The name Alma came out of nowhere. It seemed completely believable. Everything seemed believable, even the lost dog return. And the thing about the scene is that it never reached the point of, does she turn him in? Does she give him up? But just ended abruptly like this. She walked on the grounds, feeling what was here, all sky and light, the sound of hammering somewhere in one of the hutments off the dirt road, nearly half a mile off, tactful on the wind, and how the clarity of things can deepen your step, give you something to catch at and grip. And then the hammer stopped. She walked and thought. It was one of the birdless mornings. A stillness hung about the feeders, such emptiness, while resting in its depth. Inside, she noticed first thing that he was wearing the shoes she'd bought him. Snug, laced, with cushioned soles. She was pleased about this. They sat in the paneled room with the tape device on a coffee table between them. Who had taught him to tie his shoes? He was staring at her. He seemed to be staring, but probably wasn't. She didn't think his eye was able to search out and shape things. Not like normal, anyway. The eye is supposed to shape and process and paint. That tells us a story we want to believe. Then when it comes to me, what? A thing of the most. Days, yes, years. Do you know what that means? A day, a year? Or did you hear me use these words? Say some words. Say some words. In when it comes. In when it comes. What? She said. Leave into leaving. Who is leaving? This is when you... Yes, you said. What did I say? She realized she'd never called him by his name. She spoke his name only when she was alone, talking into the tape recorder, because, of course, admit it, the name is cute and condescending. He said, "Don't touch it," in a voice that wasn't quite his. "I'll clean it up later." He fell into silence after this. Yes, fell, showing a downcast glance, a lowering of spirits if she read it right. She recited a nursery rhyme in French. She tried to get him to repeat a line, and he made an effort, touching and hopeless, and she found herself describing the scene mentally to someone who may have been Mariella, or not, as if he were a piece of found art, and they needed, between them, to settle the question of his usability. Afternoons, ever so fast. Last light drained into the hills across the bay, into everything around her, trees and earth, and the pressed leaves beneath her feet, umbered, rust, and gold. And once a skein of geese passed silently over her shoulder, flying down the world into their secret night. She began to understand that she could not miss Ray, could not consider his absence, the loss of Ray, without thinking about the margins of Mr. Toad. When she picked up the ringing phone, she waited for the caller to speak first, and felt a small, cruel satisfaction in the lull of puzzled molecules. She took him outside on a clear night and traced a constellation with her finger. It was a while since she'd looked at the night sky, and their breath showed smoky in the chill air. She drew him frontally near and put his hands in her jacket pockets and blew words in his face that she made him repeat. He said, "The word for moonlight is moonlight." This made her happy. It was logically complex and oddly moving and circularly beautiful and true, or maybe not so circular, but straight as straight can be. She had to find a name that she could call him to his face. She found it interesting to think that he lived in overlapping realities. Many things are interesting, fool, but nowhere near true. She remembered herself. She needed batteries for the tape recorder. She liked to think. What did she like to think? She was having a dumb day and wanted to blame the fog. Maybe he falls, he slides, that is a useful word, from his experience of an objective world, the deepest description of space, time, where he does not feel a sense of future direction. He slides into her experience, everyone's, the standard sun-kissed chronology of events. Am I the first human to abduct an alien? The fog was somber and bronzed, low-rolling toward the coast, but then lost form on landfall, taking everything with it in a new big murk. If there is no sequential order, except for what we engender to make us safe in the world, then maybe it is possible, to cross from one nameless state to another, except that it clearly isn't. She reminded herself she needed batteries. She told herself to remember. It was the kind of day in which you forget words and drop things and wonder what it is you came into the room to get, because you were standing here for a reason, and you have to tell yourself it is just a question of sooner or later before you remember, because you always remember once you were here. The thing is communicated somehow. She was wax stripped, hair from her armpits and legs. It came ripping off in cold scissors. She had an acid exfoliating cream, hardcore, prescribed, and after she stripped the hair, she rubbed in the cream to remove waste papery skin and flakes and scales and little rolling blobs. The that she liked to hold between her fingers and imagine, unmorbidly, as the cells of something inside her. She used a monkey hairbrush on her elbows and knees. She wanted it to hurt. She didn't have to go to Tangier to buy loofahs and orange sticks. It was all in the malls and the high aisles, and so were the facial brushes, razors, and oatmeal scrubs. This was her work, to disappear from all her former venues of aspect and bearing, and to become a blankness, a body slate erased of every past resemblance. She had a fade cream she applied just about everywhere to depigment herself. She cut off some, then more, of the hair on her head. It was crude work. It became nearly brutal when she bleached out the color. In the mirror, she wanted to see someone who is classically unseen, the person you are trained to look through, bled of familiar effect, a spook in the night static of every public toilet. She used astringents to remove soap residues, greases, and chronic lurking dirt. There were plastic strips that she stuck on and peeled off, rubbing up numerous plug-like impurities from her follicles and pores. A hidden system. Interesting. These tallowy secretions, glandular events of the body cosmos, small festers and eruptions, impacted fats, oils, salts, and sweat, and how nearly scholarly the pleasures of extraction. She found the muscle rub she'd bought for Ray just before he left, and she used it just to use it. She stood looking at him, two bodies in a room. He seemed to recede under observation, inwardly withdrawal, not in discomfort, she thought, but spontaneously, autonomically, guided by some law of his body's own devising. She put her hands on his shoulders and looked into his eyes. She thought, when did people start looking into each other's eyes? This is what she did, searchingly, standing in the kitchen with Mr. Tuck. Don't touch it. I'll clean it up later. His eyes were gray, but what did it matter? His eyes were off gray. They were mild and still unanxious. And she looked. She was always looking. She could not get enough. His eyes were gray, gone sallow in this harsh light, slightly yellowish, and there were no stirrings of tremulous self. She framed his face in her hands, looking into him straight on. What did it mean? The first time a thinking creature looked deeply into another's eyes? Did it take 100,000 years before this happened? Or was it the first thing they did, transcendingly? The thing that made them higher, made them modern? The gaze that demonstrates we are lonely in our souls? She said, why do I think I'm standing closer to you than you are to me? She wasn't trying to be funny. It was true. Paradox of the spectral sort. Then she tried to be funny, using sweet talk and pet names, but soon felt foolish and stopped. He ate breakfast, or didn't, leaving most of it. Then he stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the long hall that led up to the foyer. She sat on the table, at the table, waiting. Looked past her, or through her, and she almost knew what was coming. He said, "But where are you going?" He said, "Just a little while into town." He said, "But there's nothing we need, and I'll get it if we need it. I know what to get. We need some, what's it called? Scouring powder." He said, "What?" She knew almost at once, even before he spoke. She didn't know specifically, but sensed and felt the change in him. The tea was smoking in her mug. She sat at the table and watched him, and then she knew completely in the first electric exchange, because the voices, not his. "But we don't need it now, this minute. I'll get it when I go. Ajax, that's the stuff. There's nothing to scour right now." She listened, and it was her. Who the hell else? These things she'd said. "Ajax, son of Telamon, I think, if my Trojan War is still intact. And maybe we need a newspaper, because the old one's pretty stale. And great brave warrior and spear thrower of mighty distances, and toilet cleanser too. Do you recognize what you said weeks earlier? And yes, if it is recited back to you. And yes, if it is the last thing you said, among the last things, to someone you loved and would never see again." This is what she had said to him before he got in the car and drove. If only she'd known all the way to New York. "Just for a drive, this is all. I'll take the Toyota," he said, "if I ever find my keys." This is what the man was saying in the doorway, looking small and weak, beat down by something. It did not seem an act of memory. It was Ray's voice, all right. It was her husband's tonal soul. But she didn't think the man was remembering. It's happening now. This is what she thought. She watched him struggle in his utterance and thought it was happening somehow now in his frame, in his fractured time, and he is only reporting helplessly what they say. He said, "Take a walk, why don't you? Great day. Leave the car. Leave the keys." He said, "They're in the car. Of course, the keys. Where else? This is it. How can I tell you? This is always it." He stood in the doorway, blinking. Ray is alive now in this man's mind, in his mouth and body and cough. Her skin was electric. She saw herself. She sees herself crawling toward him. The image is there in front of her. She is crawling across the floor, and it is nearly real to her. She feels something has separated, softly come unfixed, and she tries to pull him down to the floor with her, stop him, keep him here, or crawls up onto him or into him, dissolving, or only lies prone and sobs unstoppably, being watched by herself from above. She could smell his liniment on her body, his muscle rub, and then he was all through talking.